Good evening and welcome to Release Your Wings. Tonight we're talking about maintaining balance. And I think it's a really interesting topic. I'm Dan Bagley and this is Shireen Chada, and we'll be chatting about this. So Shireen, what is maintaining balance?
Good question. I was thinking that when people use the word balance, that sometimes there's a misuse of the word. But for me, balance would be that I am maintaining balance between taking care of myself spiritually and taking care of the physical body and taking care of others.
So, spiritual, self, others.
Others.
Is it
the environment, all of that would come under others.
Yeah. So how do we know when we're out of balance? I mean, are there symptoms that show up, or is it something intuitively we sense?
Yeah, when there's no well-being, that if we are in balance, we'll have a sense of well-being, we'll have a very clear conscience, we'll be very optimistic about life. So if you're not having balance, then all of those things will get...
So is balance necessary for having good energy?
Yeah. And what kind of a balance? Sometimes I feel people give balance as an excuse to not do things. They could say, oh, I need to take care of my family, so I'm not going to take care of myself. And so that balance, so I have to balance my family and I want to balance myself, or things like that. And I feel that there has to be a spiritual balance first. And the spiritual balance, I feel there are a few different categories of spiritual balance, and the first one is love and detachment. That I have a balance between being loving to people and being detached from them. And when I mean detached, it doesn't mean that I'm distancing myself or separating myself from people, but my emotions are not too vested in what people think of me or do around me and things like that.
So you can love them, but the outcome is not what you're attached to,
Yeah.
how they're going to show it. They remember your birthday or smile when they see you or something like that.
Or you don't think about them too much. That you have love for them, but you don't think about them too much. And that's one. And then the other one, I feel, is service and self-service. That I serve the world and also I serve myself. And then the third one, which is very important, is I have disinterest in the world. That whatever is happening, there has to be disinterest, but also there has to be a balance of responsibility for it.
Okay, so disinterest, though, is still maybe another word for unattachment to the outcomes? Or is it I don't even bother to watch the news?
Yeah, if you can manage. Sure. Disinterest is more that you are an impartial observer of things. And so it slightly shows up slightly differently in the world, in lack of that you don't have desires for it, you don't have attachment to the world, you don't have attachment to how situations pan out in the world and things like that.
Right. So I love college athletics, but my disinterest would be more I'm not going to let my happiness ride on the shoulder of 19 and 20-year-olds. Is that sort of it? I can enjoy the game to a point, but it's not going to ruin my weekend if my team doesn't do well.
Right.
But then some of the drama, you lose some of the drama if you're in balance too much. Or you can't be in balance too much, I imagine. But I'm trying to find the edge of reality
No,
on this.
actually, you get too much into the drama. I feel when you think too much is when you lose balance. And actually, when you do something to the extreme, that's when you lose balance. Like when you extremely love someone, or you're extremely detached from someone, that's when you lose balance. Not the doing of something, but the extreme of something is what you lose balance.
So you would say the I work hard, I play hard is not particularly ideal balance.
No, we work less and play less. We work less. The balance there would be what is my play and what is my work. And even if I'm working, I'm not saying people shouldn't work, but I shouldn't be thinking too much about it. That my overthinking really brings me down. I remember at one time sharing that thought has an energy, it has a vibration.
Right.
And if I'm thinking too much, I'm really expending a lot of energy, and I lose balance that way.
Now, I'd like some clarification, because some are going to say, well, no, I like to read, I like to think, but you're really talking about ruminating and running over what happened and what could I have done differently and that type of thing is what I believe.
Yeah, and also I have to do this, I have to do that. I have
busy
to do
mind.
Yes. Yes. And also at work, how can I get a one-up on people, or how can I do that? All of that is too much thinking. It's wasteful and negative thinking.
Yeah. Well, you were coming back, don't work too much, or, on that, but many of us feel that we really enjoy our work. It's almost like our vocation and our avocation are the same. I'm not saying that's a majority of people, but a lot of folks feel that way. Does that still work with balance for you?
Yeah, it should be. It should be. And this is where I'd like to introduce the word karma yoga. Karma yoga means that while I am doing action, karma is action, I am having yoga, or I'm having a higher consciousness. I'm having a union with God.
Okay, let me clarify here then. So what I hear you not saying is yoga is standing on one foot with your other foot behind your head.
No, yoga has many different, actually the meaning of the word yoga means union. And so here it's a union with a higher power. And so while I am doing karma, whatever karma it is, that I should have that connection with a higher power. And so that balance, actually, to be able to do that while I'm working, that creates balance. It's not that working less would create balance, but while I'm working, if I maintain a higher consciousness.
Right. So also, though, if you're on purpose, if you are fulfilling your place in the universe, your divine plan, then it's almost like balance on a bicycle, I would think. You can be moving forward, and it's easier if you're moving toward a worthwhile goal, something that nourishes your soul.
Yeah, actually, I feel without progress, there is no balance. Balance is never stationary.
That's worth repeating. Without progress, there is no balance. I like that.
And so you have to, that you yourself should feel that you are progressing, you're benefiting, that every situation, every day, there is something that is making you move forward. And that's why there's a stagnation. If there isn't, you feel stagnant, you don't feel a sense of well-being, because you feel like a hamster on a wheel. You're doing, but there is nothing really that
Right. So it isn't about busyness. It's about progress toward a worthwhile ideal, a worthwhile goal.
Yeah, or a state of being.
Yes.
Anything, whatever you feel is right. Like for me, a state of being would be a state of self-respect, that I'm a child of God, or a state of that I am peace, or I am love. To that goal, if I am able to every day discover something that I'm moving towards, then that automatically balance happens.
So the moving toward comment is interesting, because what I'm hearing this is then balance requires moving toward what we want rather than moving away from what we don't want. Is
yes.
I mean, the focus is more on here's who I am becoming, here's what I am getting to be. Is that right?
Exactly. And also when we think about balance, there has to be this sense of conscience.
Conscience.
Yeah, my conscience has to play a big role in balance. And progress only happens when my conscience is clear.
And the conscience is that you're doing no harm, or the conscience is that you were up on time, or what is the...
It could be many things. The conscience bites with everything, right? It could be that I wasn't on time on something, or it could be that I disrespected something, or it could be that I didn't do something right.
So let's play with this, because to maintain balance, then you have to have the conscience, but you don't want to beat yourself up too much, is my guess on that. So how do you maintain balance, have the conscience, acknowledge mistakes, and keep moving forward? How does that happen?
I feel that when you beat yourself up too much, it's not very useful, because you only beat yourself up when you don't learn from the mistake and you don't correct that mistake.
So the game is, okay, I made a mistake, now next time here's how I'll do it, as opposed to I'm going to keep hitting myself for doing
And
this.
next time if I change it, I don't beat myself up.
Right.
I beat myself up only when I don't change.
Aha. Which actually, for many of us, maybe beating ourselves up is a lot easier than changing.
It seems a little masochistic.
So what about the role, because balance can also be in how we spend our time, but also what we eat, what we watch perhaps on television, or what we read, who we hang out with. How does that fit in the bigger picture?
Sometimes I feel balance could be eliminating TV completely. It depends if you're addicted to it.
Right.
Or balance could be if you are, that's why I was talking about the service and the self-service.
I see.
And I feel that there are 4 things that actually constitute a really well-balanced life. The first one is wisdom, acquiring wisdom. The second one is a state of higher consciousness, or yoga, that I'm always in a state of higher consciousness. And you could think of these as the 4 legs of a chair.
Right.
And then the third one is living or practicing virtues or values in my life. And the fourth one is service, serving others. And so if even one of them is missing, then the chair is out of balance.
I see.
And so I have to see how I can inculcate those 4, what we call, you could say this is a study, and that the 4 subjects of life. So how I can inculcate those 4 subjects of life in my life in a day.
So for our viewers, go back over the 4 again, because some people looked up and said, what was that number 2?
The first one is acquiring wisdom.
Acquiring wisdom.
The second one is being in a state of higher consciousness, or yoga. Yoga, I mean here, is a state of higher consciousness, or connecting with a higher power. And the third one is practicing virtues in my life. And the fourth one is service, serving others, that I'm really here to serve others.
And within that, then, you're maintaining good balance regardless of how long your day is.
Yeah, right. So in that, if you, let's say, you focus too much on serving others, then you lose your connection with a higher power. Or you focus too much on acquiring wisdom and not practicing that wisdom, putting it into practice. So you can't really focus on one thing too much, or you can't eliminate one of the things, because I feel they are as important to life as each of the legs of a chair are to a chair.
Exactly. Okay. So do you have a way of checking, okay, here are my 4, how am I doing each, or does it come naturally at some point?
I focus mainly on the first 2. When I'm on my own, and that is the acquiring wisdom, and then the next one is the higher consciousness. The third and the fourth one, practicing virtue, I really see if I can do it in my interaction with people. So it has to, it's not like there are 4 hours and I
Right.
do each for an hour. It depends on which part of the day, what I am doing.
Right, and the serving others comes as a
natural thing. I feel it's a byproduct of the first 3. If I do the first 3, then the fourth one would be a natural thing.
I understand. So within that, that helps you maintain your energy through the day. And it really does not come back to, now I need to spend time in this activity for my balance. It's only, I need to spend this activity if it achieves the goal, the virtue, the whatever I am doing.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Right. And also, I feel that when this higher state of consciousness of yoga, or when I'm in union with a higher power, it really solves a lot of problems, because there comes a time, for me, a higher power is God, that God will use you. And so He uses His energy instead of you using your energy.
Ah. So rather than running on your own battery pack, you're plugged into the real power.
You're plugged into the real power, then there's no point of balance, then there's no point of, then whatever has to happen will happen, because He's using His energy.
Ah, so I hear as an undercurrent of all of this, or a lubricant for it, total acceptance of what's in front of you at this moment.
It's, yes, I'm really glad you brought that up. That is very, very important for balance, that I accept the situation and I don't try to manipulate it and change it, and this is... But also, there's the other aspect of it. What is it that I have to change in that situation? If I'm not liking it, what is it that I have to change?
Right. So some would say that optimal performance is talent minus interference equals optimal performance. And the interference is when I'm judging myself, when I'm not accepting and all of that. But if my natural talent, my God-given abilities are there, and I am moving forward in the balanced way, starting with wisdom and getting through to service, then that's going to help me greatly in maintaining balance. Or, stated another way, to move with minimal resistance through my day.
Exactly.
So the wisdom part, is that just an extension of cleverness, or is it much, much deeper?
No, wisdom, I feel, is so much deeper. Actually, cleverness is a detriment.
Is the antithesis of wisdom.
Wisdom that you think you're using your own thing. But wisdom is this innate knowing about the self, about God, about the principles and understanding of life. All of that is wisdom.
So when we think we're being clever, we're moving farther from wisdom. And we're probably serving the self more than others.
Actually, or maybe not serving the self at all, because we can be our own enemies.
Right, right. Well, this gives us things to think about, because in maintaining balance, at some point, we all have to say, is this feeling good in my life? And is it working for me? Thank you, Shireen.
Thank you, Dan.